Sophia and Anna were two Christian girls who had been best friends since childhood. They studied together in the same school, shared their lunch, and helped each other with homework. Their friendship was strong, and they dreamed of a happy and independent future. Whether it was school functions or family gatherings, they were always seen together, laughing and making memories. As time passed, they both entered college, excited about their new journey. However, things changed for Sophia when her parents started pressuring her to become a nun. They believed it was the best decision for her future and their family's honor. Sophia didn't want to follow this path. She had dreams of doing something different with her life. But her parents were firm and constantly reminded her of their expectations. They told her that becoming a nun would bring respect to their family and keep her away from the dangers of the world. At first, Sophia resisted, but over time, the pressure from her parents became too much. She felt trapped and had no choice but to agree. Deep down, she was heartbroken, but she didn't want to disappoint her family. She decided to give up her dreams and dedicate herself to a life she never wanted. When Anna found out about Sophia's decision, she was shocked and saddened. She couldn't imagine a life without her best friend. Anna tried to convince Sophia to change her mind, but Sophia was too scared to go against her parents. Seeing Sophia's helplessness, Anna made a bold decision. She would also become a nun. If Sophia had to live a life of sacrifice, Anna would not let her face it alone. Anna's parents were surprised by her decision, but they did not object. They thought it was a noble path and supported her choice. Anna, however, knew that her heart wasn't fully into it. She was doing it only for Sophia. The day they both entered the convent was filled with mixed emotions. They held each other's hands tightly, promising to always stay by each other's side. Although they tried to accept their new life, Sophia couldn't help but feel that something was wrong. She often wondered why her parents were so eager for her to become a nun. What were they hiding from her? As days passed, their friendship remained strong, but Sophia's heart was restless. She had an uneasy feeling that something from her past was being kept a secret. Little did she know, a shocking truth was about to change everything. One afternoon, Sophia returned home from church earlier than usual. As she quietly entered the house, she noticed something unusual. Her parents' bedroom door was slightly open, and she could hear their hushed, anxious voices. Curious and concerned, Sophia tiptoed closer, careful not to make any noise. Her heart started pounding as she overheard their conversation. What if he finds out where she is? He has already threatened us so many times, her mother whispered in a fearful voice. Sophia froze in shock. Her father's voice trembled with worry. We had no other option. If she becomes a nun, he can never marry her. That's why we forced her into this life. If we hadn't, who knows what could have happened? Sophia's hands started to shake as the terrifying truth slowly sank in. A Muslim man had been after her, threatening her parents and demanding to marry her. They had been living in constant fear, facing deadly attacks from him. This was why they forced her to become a nun, to protect her from this unknown danger. Becoming a nun meant she could never marry, and that was their only way to escape the threats. Sophia felt like the ground had slipped from under her feet. She covered her mouth to stop herself from making a sound and stumbled backward, her eyes wide with disbelief. She couldn't believe that her entire life had been shaped by fear, fear of a man she never even knew existed. Her parents had kept this dark secret from her, forcing her into a life of sacrifice without ever telling her the truth. Quietly, Sophia stepped away from their door, her body trembling with shock. She felt a deep, overwhelming fear creeping into her heart. As she made her way to her room, her mind was racing with questions. Why didn't her parents tell her? Who was this man? Why was he after her? She could hardly breathe as panic took over her thoughts. Reaching her room, she locked the door behind her and sat down on the bed, staring blankly at the floor. Her chest felt heavy, and tears welled up in her eyes. Everything suddenly made sense. Their strictness, their constant insistence, their fearful faces. She realized that she had never truly been in control of her own life. Her breathing became rapid, and she clutched her head in confusion. She felt betrayed, hurt, and trapped all over again. The walls of her room felt like they were closing in on her, and her heart was racing. The urge to scream filled her chest, but she remained silent, trying to process everything she had just learned. Sophia knew one thing for sure. She could not live in this fear any longer. She had to do something. She had to take control of her life before it was too late. But what could she do? And where could she even begin? As she lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, tears silently rolled down her cheeks. A storm of emotions was building inside her, and soon it would push her toward a dangerous path she had never imagined. The next day, Sophia couldn't hold her emotions any longer. She rushed to Anna's room, tears streaming down her face. Her hands trembled as she clutched Anna's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. "Anna, I can't take this anymore," she cried, her voice filled with pain and anger. Anna, shocked to see her friend in such distress, quickly made her sit down and asked, "What happened, Sophia? Tell me everything." Through her sobs, Sophia revealed the dark secret she had overheard the previous day. She explained how her parents were forced to make her a nun, not out of faith, but out of fear. "They are scared, Anna. Scared of that man, Hassan. He has been threatening them for years. They forced me into this life just to escape him. I thought they wanted the best for me, but all this time they were only trying to protect themselves." Her voice cracked as fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. Anna listened carefully, her heart aching for her friend. She could see the pain in Sophia's eyes, the helplessness she had been carrying for so long. "I can't live like this, Anna," Sophia whispered, looking down at her trembling hands. "I won't let my parents suffer in fear anymore. I want to end this. I want him to pay for what he did to us." Anna held Sophia's hands tightly and wiped away her tears. "Sophia, listen to me," she said in a calm yet determined voice. "We won't let Hassan ruin your life. We will take revenge, together." A flicker of hope appeared in Sophia's eyes, and for the first time she felt like she wasn't alone in this battle. Without wasting any more time, they sat down and started discussing their next move. Sophia's anger was now turning into determination. "We need to find out everything about him," Anna said, her eyes sharp with focus. "Where he goes, what he does, and how we can make him pay for what he did to your family." Sophia nodded, wiping her tears away. She was no longer just a victim, she was ready to fight back. The two friends vowed to stand by each other, no matter what came next. The path they were about to take was dark and dangerous, but they were willing to risk everything to end their fear once and for all. Determined to take revenge, Sophia and Anna wasted no time and started gathering information about Hassan. They knew that to defeat him, they had to understand every detail of his life. Sophia and Anna began by asking around discreetly, talking to people in the town without raising any suspicion. They visited local markets, tea stalls, and even the areas where Hassan was known to spend his time. Sophia carefully observed his movements while pretending to be a passerby. Anna managed to talk to a few people who worked for Hassan's family, pretending to be curious about their luxurious lifestyle. Slowly, they started piecing together his routine and habits. They found out that Hassan belonged to a wealthy and influential family. He had a reputation for being arrogant and indulging in all sorts of vices. Women, alcohol, and gambling were a regular part of his life. He thought his wealth and power made him untouchable. The more Sophia and Anna learned about him, the more their hatred grew. They started following him from a safe distance, keeping track of his daily routine. They watched him leave his house in his expensive car, noticed the places he visited and the people he met. They even monitored his social media accounts, where he often showed off his lavish lifestyle. Hassan had many weaknesses, and they were determined to use them against him. After weeks of careful observation and planning, Sophia and Anna finally had enough information to act. They knew his daily schedule, when he left home, where he spent his evenings, and when he was most vulnerable. With all the details in place, they sat down late at night, whispering about their plan. "We have to wait for the perfect moment," Anna said, her eyes filled with determination. "One wrong move and everything will be ruined." Sophia nodded in agreement, her heart pounding with anticipation. "We will make sure he pays for everything he has done," she whispered. The plan was set, and all that remained was the right opportunity to strike. The days ahead were filled with tension, but one thing was clear: Sophia and Anna were no longer scared. They were ready to bring Hassan down, no matter what it took. One afternoon, Sophia and Anna left the church earlier than usual. Their hearts pounded with anticipation as they quickly walked to the main road and hailed a cab. They directed the driver to a spot near Hassan's house. This was the exact time he usually left home for his evening outings. Their plan was simple but dangerous, and both girls knew there was no turning back now. As they reached the spot, Sophia and Anna stepped out of the cab and stood on the side of the road. The sun was slowly setting, and the street was quiet, except for the occasional passing car. They positioned themselves strategically in the middle of Hassan's usual route, pretending to look helpless and in need of a ride. Minutes passed in nerve-wracking silence until they saw a familiar black car approaching. Sophia's heartbeat quickened as she exchanged a quick glance with Anna. The car slowed down, and as soon as it came closer, they waved their hands, signaling for help. The tinted window rolled down, and Hassan's face appeared, his eyes lighting up as he recognized Sophia. With a confident smirk, he leaned out and said, "Sophia, what are you doing here?" Sophia forced a polite smile. "Our cab broke down. Can you give us a lift?" Hassan didn't think twice. "Of course, get in," he said, unlocking the doors eagerly. Sophia and Anna climbed into the back seat, their hands trembling slightly but their faces calm. The trap was set. As the car moved down the deserted road, Hassan tried to make conversation. "So, Sophia, it's been a long time. How's life treating you?" he asked with a sly smile, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. Sophia nodded but gave short, uninterested replies. Anna stared out of the window, pretending to be lost in thought. Hassan continued talking, boasting about his wealth and influence, clearly enjoying himself, but he started noticing that Sophia was unusually quiet. His smile faded slightly. 10 minutes into the ride, Sophia and Anna exchanged a silent signal. Sophia reached into her bag and gripped the rope tightly. The moment was here. Without warning, Sophia lunged forward, looping the rope around Hassan's neck and pulling it with all her strength. Hassan's eyes widened in shock, his hands immediately reaching for his throat as he gasped for air. His foot pressed harder on the accelerator, causing the car to swerve dangerously from side to side. The tires screeched against the asphalt, and the car jerked violently. Hassan struggled to fight back, his hands clawing at the rope, but Sophia tightened her grip with all the force she could muster. Anna, staying calm despite the chaos, quickly reached for the handbrake and pulled it hard. The car skidded to a halt in the middle of the empty road, jerking forward with a loud screech. Dust and smoke surrounded them as the vehicle stopped abruptly. Inside the car, there was only the sound of heavy breathing and Hassan's desperate gasps. It was late in the evening when Sophia suddenly burst into her house, breathing heavily and her hands trembling. Her face was pale, and beads of sweat rolled down her forehead. Without wasting a second, she rushed to her room, slamming the door shut behind her. Her heart was pounding loudly in her chest as she frantically grabbed a small bag and started stuffing it with clothes. Every sound outside made her flinch, and her fingers trembled as she packed her belongings as quickly as she could. Her parents, hearing the noise, knocked on her door. "Sophia, what's going on? Are you all right?" Her mother's worried voice came from the other side. Sophia took a deep breath, trying to steady her voice. "I'm fine, Mama. The church has called me for an emergency. Anna and I have to leave right away," she said, forcing calmness into her tone. Her father appeared behind her mother, concern etched across his face. "But at this hour? Can't it wait until morning?" Sophia shook her head, avoiding their gaze. "No, it's urgent. I'll explain everything later," she said hurriedly, grabbing her bag and rushing toward the door. Before they could ask any more questions, she was already out. Outside, Anna was waiting for her near the street corner, looking equally restless. Her eyes darted around nervously, scanning the surroundings as if expecting someone to follow them. She, too, carried a small bag over her shoulder. As soon as Sophia joined her, Anna whispered, "Did anyone suspect anything?" Sophia shook her head, trying to catch her breath. "No, but we have to leave now. We can't stay here any longer." Without another word, they walked quickly through the dimly lit streets, their footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. The fear of being followed lingered in their minds, making every shadow and every passing figure look suspicious. Their hearts raced and their hands gripped their bags tightly. After what felt like an eternity, they reached the train station. The platform was almost empty, apart from a few passengers waiting for their trains. Sophia and Anna exchanged nervous glances before purchasing their tickets. They had no specific destination in mind, just anywhere far from this city. Soon they boarded the train, finding an empty corner where they could sit quietly. Sophia gazed out of the window as the train slowly pulled out of the station, leaving behind everything she had known. Anna sat beside her, clutching her bag tightly, her mind filled with fear and uncertainty. Neither of them spoke a word as the train picked up speed, taking them farther and farther away. The dim lights of the passing streets flickered through the window, casting eerie shadows inside the compartment. Every time someone walked past their seat, they held their breath, fearing they were being followed. Sophia leaned her head against the window, her eyes staring blankly at the dark landscape outside. Anna, on the other hand, kept glancing around nervously. Their hearts were heavy with fear, but they knew there was no turning back now. They had left everything behind, stepping into the unknown, hoping to escape the consequences of what they had done. Anna and Sophia sat huddled together on a narrow berth in the dimly lit train compartment. Their faces were pale, drained of color, and their eyes darted around nervously. It was as if they had committed a crime, something terrible that weighed heavily on their hearts. The rhythmic sound of the train moving along the tracks filled the compartment, but it did little to ease their tension. Their hands trembled slightly, and their breathing was uneven. Every small noise, a creak of the seat, the rustling of someone's bag, or the footsteps of a passing passenger, made them flinch. They exchanged anxious glances, their minds filled with fear and uncertainty. Were they being followed? Was someone watching them? The paranoia crept in like a shadow that refused to leave. Anna clutched her bag tightly, her fingers repeatedly moving to the small zip on the side pocket. Each time she would slowly reach out, as if wanting to check something inside, but then she would pull her hand back nervously. Sophia noticed, but said nothing. She knew Anna was just as scared as she was. Something about the whole situation felt wrong, terribly wrong. The tension between them was suffocating. To stay alert, they decided to take turns resting. Sophia leaned back against the window, her eyes heavy with exhaustion, but her mind racing. "You sleep first," she whispered to Anna. Anna hesitated, but eventually closed her eyes, though her sleep was restless and filled with uneasy dreams. Every few minutes, she would jolt awake, gasping for breath, only to find Sophia staring blankly at the passing darkness outside. Hours passed like this, one keeping watch while the other rested, neither fully able to relax. The constant fear of being discovered kept them on edge. The slightest whisper in the corridor outside their compartment made them sit up straight, their hearts pounding in their chests. Anna's hand instinctively reached for the zipper of her bag again, but this time her fingers lingered a little longer. Her eyes widened slightly as if she was unsure whether to check inside or not. Sophia noticed and asked in a hushed tone, "What is it, Anna?" Anna swallowed hard and shook her head. "Nothing," she whispered, but her fingers twitched in hesitation. Something was definitely wrong. The train continued its journey into the night, carrying them away from their past. But deep inside, both girls knew that the past could not be escaped so easily. Something was waiting for them ahead, something they weren't prepared for. As soon as Sophia and Anna stepped off the train, a strange feeling crept over them. The station was crowded with people rushing in different directions, but something felt off, an unsettling presence that sent shivers down their spines. Sophia glanced over her shoulder and noticed a man in a black hoodie standing a few feet away, his face partially hidden under the hood. Anna felt it too. "Sophia, I think someone is following us," she whispered, gripping Sophia's arm tightly. Trying not to panic, they continued walking, pretending to act normal. They weaved through the crowd, hoping the man would disappear among the sea of passengers. To be sure, they decided to go into a nearby cafeteria, hoping to lose him. They entered, sat at a corner table, and watched the entrance carefully. But after a few minutes, the hooded figure appeared again, standing near the entrance, pretending to check his phone. A wave of fear washed over them. He was definitely following them. Sophia's hands trembled under the table, while Anna nervously reached for her bag's small side pocket, her fingers fumbling over the zipper again and again. Her face turned pale. "He's still there," Anna whispered, eyes wide with fear. Trying to stay calm, Sophia whispered, "Let's leave from the back exit." They quickly paid for their untouched drinks and hurried out the back door, blending into the busy street outside. But their relief was short-lived. After a few minutes of walking, Anna gasped. "Sophia, he's behind us," she whispered in panic. Sophia didn't look back. Instead, she grabbed Anna's hand tightly. "Run," she said, and both of them took off through the crowded marketplace. They zigzagged through the narrow alleyways, their hearts pounding wildly in their chests. Every step they took felt like the man was getting closer. The sound of footsteps behind them echoed in their ears, making them run faster. Panic consumed them as they pushed past vendors and hurried through the busy crowd. They didn't dare stop, fearing that if they did, he would catch up. After several minutes of running, they found themselves near the station exit, gasping for breath. Looking around frantically, they realized they had lost him, at least for now. Anna bent down, panting heavily, while Sophia tried to steady her breathing. "I think we lost him," Sophia whispered, glancing nervously at the crowd. "But for how long?" Anna muttered, still clutching her bag tightly. They both knew the danger was far from over. They couldn't go to the church. It was the first place anyone looking for them would check. They had to find somewhere safe, somewhere no one would think to look. With a heavy heart and fear still gripping them, they stepped away from the station, stepping into the unknown once again, desperately searching for a place to hide. After escaping the mysterious man at the train station, Sophia and Anna found themselves wandering the unfamiliar streets of a new city, exhausted and anxious. They knew they couldn't go to the church. It was too risky. Anyone searching for them would start their hunt there. With limited options and fear gripping their hearts, they finally decided to stay in a small, old hotel tucked away in a quiet alley. The receptionist, an elderly man with tired eyes, barely looked up as they checked in under fake names. Their hands trembled slightly as they handed over the cash for a few nights' stay. "Room 207, he muttered, sliding the key across the counter. Once inside their dimly lit room, they locked the door behind them and let out a collective sigh of relief. The room smelled of dust and dampness, but it felt like the only place where they could finally catch their breath. They pulled the curtains shut tightly, afraid to let even a sliver of light escape. For the next 2 days, Sophia and Anna remained inside, too scared to step out. They kept the lights off at night, whispering in hushed tones and checking the peephole every few minutes. The tension in the air was suffocating. Each knock on a nearby door made their hearts skip a beat, and the sound of footsteps in the hallway felt like a threat lurking just outside. Their meals were limited to instant food they had packed earlier, and they took turns staying awake to keep watch. Anna was still haunted by the image of the man in the hoodie, and Sophia couldn't shake the fear of being followed. Every small noise outside the window sent shivers down their spines. Despite their precautions, as the days passed, they began to feel a false sense of security. By the third day, they convinced themselves that they might have overreacted. "Maybe he lost track of us," Anna whispered, trying to reassure herself more than Sophia. Slowly, their routine returned to normal. They started venturing outside, first to the nearby grocery store and then for short walks in the evening. Sophia even suggested visiting a local cafe for a warm meal. They laughed softly at their earlier fears, believing they were finally safe. Anna no longer clutched her bag so tightly, and Sophia started sleeping more soundly at night. However, unknown to them, danger was lurking just around the corner. They had no idea that their every move was being watched, and their sense of safety was just an illusion. One evening, as they returned to the hotel from a short walk, Sophia had an eerie feeling, but she brushed it off. "Just my imagination," she thought. But as they walked up the dimly lit staircase, Anna suddenly froze in place. "What's wrong?" Sophia asked, noticing the color draining from Anna's face. Anna hesitated, her voice trembling. I think I saw him," she whispered, her hands gripping Sophia's arm tightly. Sophia's heart dropped. "Are you sure?" she asked in a shaky voice. Anna nodded slowly. "It was the same hoodie. He was standing at the corner when we passed by the cafe." Fear crept back into their hearts, and the realization hit them hard. No matter how far they ran, their past was catching up with them. It had been a month since Sophia and Anna had left their city behind. Over time, their fears slowly started to fade. They no longer saw any suspicious figures lurking around, and the constant paranoia that haunted them in the beginning seemed to ease. Feeling a little safer, they decided to resume their normal routines. One day, after much discussion, they both agreed to visit the church again. The church had always been a place of peace for them, and returning to it made them feel like they were regaining some control over their lives. They began attending services regularly, sitting quietly at the back, hoping to blend in with the crowd. Seeing the familiar surroundings and hearing the soothing prayers gave them a sense of comfort they had long been missing. Days passed without incident, and Sophia and Anna started feeling more relaxed. They no longer felt the need to glance over their shoulders constantly or stay hidden in their hotel room. The fear that once gripped their hearts was now beginning to feel like a distant memory. However, one afternoon, when Anna was returning from the church alone, everything changed. As she walked through the quiet streets, she suddenly felt an eerie sensation that someone was watching her. Her heartbeat quickened and her palms grew sweaty. She tried to shake off the feeling, but then, from the corner of her eye, she saw him, the same man in the black hoodie standing at the far end of the street. Anna's heart pounded in her chest as fear gripped her once again. Without wasting another second, she quickened her pace, hoping it was just a coincidence. But as she turned a corner, she heard footsteps behind her, fast, determined footsteps. He was following her. Panic surged through her veins, and she broke into a run. The streets blurred past her as she zigzagged through the crowded lanes, pushing past strangers. The man was right behind her, closing the gap with every step. Anna's breath came in gasps, and her legs burned from running, but she didn't stop. Somehow, she managed to slip into an alley, making a sharp turn that momentarily put some distance between them. Without looking back, she sprinted towards the hotel, rushing inside and locking the door behind her. Her chest heaved as she collapsed onto the floor, shaking uncontrollably. Sophia, startled by Anna's sudden entry, rushed to her side. "Anna, what happened?" she asked, concern written all over her face. "He's back, the man in the black hoodie. He followed me," Anna stammered, her eyes wide with terror. Sophia's face turned pale. "We can't stay here anymore, Anna. If he's found us, we need to leave before it's too late." Fear and uncertainty filled the room once again. They had to act fast before they were trapped with no way out. Let's go back to that fateful day, the day Sophia and Anna decided to confront Hassan. Their plan was simple: to scare him, to make him realize that he couldn't control their lives anymore. But things didn't go as planned. As Hassan drove down the lonely road, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the pavement. Sophia and Anna stood on the roadside, pretending to need a ride. Hassan, spotting them, smirked and stopped his car without hesitation. Little did he know, danger awaited him inside his own vehicle. Once inside the car, Sophia and Anna remained eerily silent, their eyes filled with hidden tension. Hassan, oblivious to their true intentions, tried to make conversation, flashing his usual arrogance. But in an instant, everything changed. Sophia, sitting in the back seat, reached into her bag and swiftly pulled out a rope. Before Hassan could react, she looped it around his neck and pulled tightly. His eyes widened in shock, his hands struggling to loosen the grip. The car swerved dangerously from side to side, tires screeching against the road. Hassan gasped for breath, his face turning red as he fought back with all his strength. "Hold him, Anna!" Sophia cried, tightening her grip as Hassan thrashed violently. Anna, in a state of panic, grabbed the steering wheel to prevent the car from crashing. The vehicle came to a screeching halt, but their struggle was far from over. Hassan's strength was overpowering, and in the heat of the moment, Sophia pulled harder, desperate to subdue him. Then suddenly everything went still. Hassan's hands, which had been clawing at the rope, dropped lifelessly to his sides. His head tilted back, eyes frozen in shock. Sophia and Anna stared at him, their breathing heavy, realizing what they had done. We didn't mean to," Sophia whispered in horror, tears forming in her eyes. Anna's hands trembled as she covered her mouth, unable to process what had just happened. Before they could regain their composure, the sound of screeching tires filled the air. A white car pulled up beside them. Out stepped a tall figure dressed in a black hoodie. He stood frozen for a moment, staring at the horrific scene in front of him. Hassan's lifeless body slumped in the driver's seat. A sudden scream pierced the silence. The hooded man shouted, pointing directly at them. Panic surged through Sophia and Anna's bodies, and without thinking twice, they bolted from the car, running as fast as they could into the darkness. But it was too late. The hooded man had seen their faces. He knew exactly who they were. Unknown to them, the man was none other than Hassan's elder brother, a ruthless and vengeful soul. The blood of his brother was on their hands, and he was determined to hunt them down and make them pay. From that moment on, Sophia and Anna were not just running from their past, they were running from death itself. The air in the small hotel room was thick with fear and urgency. Sophia and Anna were frantically packing their belongings, stuffing clothes and essentials into their bags with trembling hands. Their faces were pale, sweat trickling down their foreheads. They knew they had little time left. The hooded man had found them, and they had to disappear before it was too late. "Faster, Anna. We have to leave now," Sophia whispered, her voice shaky but firm. Anna nodded silently, zipping up her bag in one swift motion. They were both on edge, every sound from the hallway making their hearts race. With their bags in hand, they hurried towards the door. Anna reached it first, her hand shaking as she grasped the handle. She turned it slowly, peeking out cautiously before stepping forward. Just as she set one foot outside, bang! A deafening gunshot echoed through the narrow hallway. In an instant, Anna's body jolted back, her eyes wide in shock. Time seemed to freeze as Sophia watched in horror. Anna staggered for a moment, then collapsed onto the cold floor, her bag slipping from her grasp. A dark red stain quickly spread across her forehead, and a small pool of blood began forming beneath her head. Sophia's scream pierced through the silence. "Anna! No! Anna!" She fell to her knees, shaking her friend's lifeless body, but there was no response. Her hands were covered in Anna's blood, and tears blurred her vision. She felt paralyzed, unable to process what had just happened. The hotel corridor erupted into chaos. Guests rushed out of their rooms, gasping in shock and fear. A hotel staff member shouted, "Call the police! Someone's been shot!" The distant wail of sirens grew louder, but the shooter was already gone, vanished into the night, leaving behind only death and terror. Sophia's breathing became ragged, her chest heaving with panic. She clutched Anna's cold hand, whispering, "Stay with me, please." But Anna was gone. Her lifeless eyes stared at the ceiling, frozen in time. Within minutes, police officers stormed the hallway, their voices commanding the crowd to step back. Paramedics arrived, but one look at Anna's motionless body was enough. They covered her with a white sheet, confirming what Sophia already knew. Sophia sat frozen in shock, her entire world crumbling around her. Her best friend was gone, and now she was truly alone. But deep inside her shattered heart, a new feeling was beginning to take root: revenge. After Anna's tragic death, Sophia returned to her parents' house, but she was not the same anymore. The once lively and hopeful girl had turned into a hollow, broken soul. Her eyes, once full of dreams, now held nothing but emptiness. She rarely spoke, and when she did, it was only to mumble Anna's name under her breath. At first, her parents thought she just needed time to heal, but soon her behavior became more alarming. She would sit for hours staring at the walls, whispering to herself, as if Anna was still beside her. Some nights, terrifying screams echoed through the house as Sophia woke up in a state of panic, crying and calling out for Anna. She would run through the hallways, searching desperately, convinced Anna was hiding somewhere in the house. During the day, her restlessness increased. She would suddenly lash out, grabbing anyone who tried to comfort her, hitting and screaming, "Why did you leave me, Anna?" Her parents, helpless and heartbroken, watched as their daughter slowly lost touch with reality. She began refusing food, locking herself in her room for hours, and whispering to unseen shadows. One evening, Sophia's condition took a dangerous turn. She suddenly grabbed a family photo and smashed it against the wall, screaming, "They're coming for me! Anna, save me!" Her parents knew they could no longer handle her alone. With heavy hearts, they decided to admit her to a mental hospital, hoping she could find the help she so desperately needed. At the hospital, Sophia's condition worsened. She barely recognized her parents when they visited her twice a week. Each time, they found her sitting in the corner, hugging her knees and staring blankly at the floor. She no longer responded to their voices, and the only words she muttered repeatedly were, "Anna, Anna, come back." Days turned into weeks, and her memory started fading. She forgot the faces of her loved ones, their voices, and even her own identity. The only thing that remained in her shattered mind was Anna. Every night she would call out for her friend, her cries echoing through the empty halls of the hospital. Sophia was trapped in a nightmare she could never wake up from, forever haunted by the ghost of her past.